Okay, so we're getting ready to play. I finished setup, which was not a lot, mainly reading through the scenario instructions, putting Alfonso on the map, moving Ahmed Pasha over there. Let's talk a little bit about this. This is the Otranto introductory scenario, which only takes place over here. Back in 1480, Muhammad II landed there, but he sort of abandoned well, he died. Oh, I'm sorry, wait, something Muhammad II, yeah, Mehmed Muhammad, I guess it's alternate spellings, but they use them both in here, which is a little confusing to me. But anyway, he died in May of 81. And this is going to start in June of 81 with no relief forces in sight, and the force here under a garrison order to begin with. Now, I have not yet put an order on Alfonso. I think I'm allowed to put whatever I like on him, basically. The allies are the Kingdom of Naples and the Papal States if they come into play. And the Turks are the other side. Like I said, this is the only portion of the map that's playable. And the Turk immediately wins if he occupies Otranto at the end of any turn. The Allied side wins if no Turkish force occupies Terra de Otranto by the end of the scenario. No, any fortress in Terra Otranto. So if we take all their fortresses. Well, right now they only have one. Brindisi is a supply source, but as far as I can tell, they don't own it. Any other result is going to be a draw, and the Christians would not like that. On each yellow turn, well, at the beginning of the game, the Allies start with 4 action points. The Turks have a whole one. On each yellow turn, the Allies will get a nominal 3 points, which they have to roll for based on their distance from the supply source. I didn't look at the chart. I don't know if I'm at a horrible distance, but I have to take this. This is my only viable supply source. So, and the Turks, if they occupy one of their supply sources, the supply source hex, I assume that's with anything, any troops. Like the supply marker here is under here. I think if there's any troops in the supply source hex, they get to roll a die, and on a 1 or a 2, they get an action point. They get an action point that's got to cover them for 2 turns, right? They don't have a lot of troops, but anyway. Whereas the Allied army has way more supply points than I think they need. What else do we have here? We have the Arabic letter spelling for their Capitan general, who is not in the game at the beginning. They give the card number because these are double-sided. So that's kind of helpful. The troops that are present. There are 4 Allied barons that I was allowed to deploy kind of as I like. I put them where I wanted them. Yeah, I can put any order on Alfonso. And it will, I have to calculate it out to see if I want to move or a move to attack or whatever. The Turkish army is fairly small. They have an additional minor Capitani. I think the Aragonese have to start with their Capitan, their minors on the board. Well, with Alfonso, but I might be better off without them, but if I want to collect up the barons, I kind of need them. All right, special rules. The administrative segment on the sequence of play is omitted for both players in turn 1. So whatever orders I pick are what I'm going to be on. And that's going to be June, somewhere or another. I did not do this. Lots and lots of counters. I should put an end so I know when it ends. It ends in October 2. There is no end marker, but I'm going to put that there. That's the year marker. I don't really care about the year. We're at the end of the game. Okay. I'm looking for the rules. Turkish special reinforcements. Beginning from the reinforcement step of game turn July 1st, down here, the first yellow turn that we have, the Turkish player can try to convince Bayezid, the Sultan, to send Albanian relief army, or the army in Albania, to help the Turkish. You roll a die. On a 1, they can deploy the force. On a 2 or 3, nothing happens. On a 4, 5, or 6, the relief force will definitely never come, and this rule is no longer used, and you get Ahmed Pasha and his forces. If this comes in any fortress in Terra del Otranto owned by the Allies, the Papal States get a minor Capitano with some additional forces to help them. We do not play with the sheep, which makes sense. They're far from everything. Terra d'Otranto is and always remains Aragonese during the scenario, but barons can't be replaced. So we're not going to play with the full rules of barons. And for pillaging, the Turks pay an additional movement point only and don't have to be disrupted. I'm not sure what the full rules of pillaging were. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so yeah, that's if they're pillaging a fortified location that's empty. Yeah, if they're pillaging, if they move through they can move through an unfortified town. There's one down here. Let me make sure I'm in fortresses everywhere. Yeah, they can move through an unfortified town and end up just pillaging that automatically. But it's the not being disrupted that's kind of a big deal. The Aragonese deploy first. Well, the Turks really don't have anything they can do. I'm going to pause there. I don't really want to jump in came up here to play, but I'm always kind of dragging my feet. And I know it's going to be a big deal to get into this. These days, my weather app says like cloudy or partially cloudy or something like that. It's like, maybe 2 p.m., which is about when I'm getting up these days. And it's just fog everywhere. I mean, not real thick, but it's definitely more than just cloudy, at least where I am. Maybe down, off the hill, and I'm not that high up. It looks like clouds, but here it just looks so much worse, and it's very, very hard for me to motivate. But obviously, there's no sun or anything like that showing through, which feels a lot worse than my little weather app expects. Anyway, here we are, finally going to actually try to play El Gran Capitan. And I've started to look up, hey, what are the movement point costs going to be to get me there so I can pick the right shit and everything. There's a fair overhead to just getting started and starting to understand, not so much understand the rules, but understand what the rules implications are when, taking into account the scenario, but also the terrain effects chart and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really ready, I'm very resistant to starting anything, right? But a couple of things came to mind. First of all, I got answers to my questions and or to my notes. Essentially, I absolutely right about the thing from All Is Lost Save Honor. But the designer did kind of put forward a, for the artillery situation, the way he means it in this game is that you can fire once. It isn't necessarily an artifact of the old game. You can fire twice in one round, or delay your fire over 2 rounds. I'm not sure why you would delay your fire over 2 rounds. I don't have a good idea of that, but that may be a matter of there was an oops, but he can like look at the 2 situations and say, you know what, since I'm saying both, you can do either, or something along those lines. I don't know. But that's fine. The other thing is he gave me a response on his reasoning for the rivers and the earthworks, which is more or less what I expected, which is something along the lines of, you know, it's a matter of maneuvering and whatnot during the battle, so you don't really know when when the enemy is going to block you. It defeats sort of my suspension of disbelief there, right? The attacker knows the terrain, doesn't necessarily know the troops that he's going after. So I'm actually much more disturbed by the idea that the player knows exactly what he's facing, but doesn't know the terrain, right? Like, yeah, there were examples. You could make an argument, I think it's at Agincourt, that the French were not quite aware of how affecting that terrain was going to be, or something along those lines. The final thing is, outside of all of that, I was complaining about how something useful is on the backside of this, and what I didn't think about is we got setup charts on a single card. Now, I understand the reason for using a single card to put all the setup stuff, but in terms of efficiency and usage, you don't really need this while you're setting up the game. So the backside of that piece could have been the setup chart, and then the optional rules that are on the backside of this could be on the other side of the setup chart, or whatever. You know, it kind of doesn't matter what you know, whether other things are shifted around or whatever. But yeah, I think that would have been a wiser choice. That's just one of those sort of developer type decisions, right? Like you're looking at things and you're just like, I don't know, you know, when somebody complained, like, when the playtesters write back and they're like, yeah, it would have been really nice to have this there. Of course, they may not have had reasonable facsimiles of the actual materials, right? They may, in some cases, playtesters are being given, you know, especially nowadays, a PDF file of the rules and the charts and are expected to print it out themselves. And at some point or another, you gotta give people this is the beginning of the, you know, this is what we were intending to, we're thinking about sending out. Give us notes on this. People who've never seen the game before, who can go through the rules and have all kind of new questions and add new problems to things. Ideally, it happens multiple times, right? Like, I mean, it depends on what the fixes are. But the reality is, you know, the hobby can't really even afford to send out blind testing of a nearly finished product to most people. That should be changing. The way that there's sort of print-on-demand type stuff, they should be able to provide precisely the materials that people would need. Another problem, though, is that playtesters may be among some of the most competent and most willing to push to understand or whatever, right? They're already going that extra mile to make sure the game gets printed out, you know, it gets published by being a playtester. And so you got a different mindset from somebody like me, or, you know, somebody who's even less engaged. And Yeah. It's going to be hard to find that kind of balance there. And, you know, maybe what you're getting is playtesters who are like, yeah, well, I don't mind doing it yourself in parts of the game, you know. Well, get out of that mindset when you're playtesting, damn it. Anyway. Lots of chatter, no play. It is really hard for me to start. I'm trying to figure out, can I get here with an attack order? And if not, then I guess I start with a march order. It's not that big a deal for the Aragonese because, oh, and I think I got to put orders on these guys too. It's not that big a deal for the Aragonese because they do have extra AP, and it'll just be kind of like, you know, a learning experience. One more thing, I had a question about the artillery, which are not expressed in the rule book, but they are actually expressed in the setup instructions. And that's done as follows. So I had to kind of intuit the strength. I mean, it's clear in the setup instructions, but I had to intuit what part of the counter is strength. And I think the other part is going to be movement allowance on the artillery pieces because their numbers aren't where they belong. And that's helpful because it differentiates them, but it would have helped to have a picture that explained where they were. Now, this is the terrain effects chart. The other side, somewhere there's a units chart. There we go. But again, it gives, no, that's something different. That's firearms quality and R, I don't remember what R is, reliability, whatever. The other thing. So if I look here, the Aragonese artillery 3 SP. Well, I looked at the pieces that are colored like the Aragonese, and there were 2 artillery pieces, and the only 3 on either one is this one, and probably a similar thing, maybe even more extreme with the Turkish artillery 2 SP. Well, that's got to be the parenthesized number in that case. I certainly don't remember, like, there wasn't a picture that showed it, and I don't remember something that talked about how the artillery numbers are positioned differently. It can be figured out, but it's not as easy as it might be. I had to look up where the orders went. In general, I put them on the board because it made sense to me while I'm trying to visualize and whatnot, but they're supposed to go on the Capitano's actual piece. I could have him over somewhere else. I don't know. I'm keeping them like they are because that's what I set up. The attack order is unlikely to actually work and get me into range with him. I forgot a little bit about how movement works, but when I looked at the counter, it has an initiative -1. And that made me realize, okay, my movement points aren't the movement points on the counter. They're the movement points influenced by the initiative. And this guy has an initiative of 3. At -1, he's at 2. And then I roll a die and subtract that. So I'm probably going to get a negative number out of that. I'm probably not going to make it. But on the other hand, that allows me to store up APs, which I should have on here, and be able to, be more flexible later in the game or whatever. Otherwise, I would have like a regular movement or a maneuver order, move closer, and then in order to enter the hex, have to make the action point order anyway. So I wouldn't be able to get into the hex anyway. And I think the attack order is going to get me close enough. The other thing I need to look up is what about those barons? I think they need commands too. At the beginning of the scenario. how is this written? Yeah, see, there's an order here. The barons are not noted as having a command on them. There's not going to be a command phase on this first turn, but it is the first thing that happens. So after the weather. So I'm going to assign those as well. The goal with them is probably to get them onto Alfonso. Now he has a rank of 5. He's commanding 1, 2, 3. I think I can take 2 of those barons in. I do believe these count against me. Yeah. So the barons, I don't have a space for orders on them. They don't have a card, so I have to put them on the board. I don't know if it says that under the barons section, but I'm just using reasonableness. So let's start. Well, back to the scenario special instructions. Make sure first turn administrative is omitted, not the weather phase. So, sure, let's check the weather. And it is not January. It is May 2nd, which means anything but a 6 is going to be normal weather. Do we have little markers for the weather? So things like cavalry halved. I think those are to use with the terrain effects, just as reminders or something. I don't know. Those counters are not specified for me. And then these, I really ought to move these into this counter tray, because these are things I'm going to need. And who's the white units? It looks like that goes over here. Purple, put them over here. Those are going to be papal. The rivers, I might need them over here. Yeah. There's a few too many counters to have everything in one tray, but that's okay. So we did the weather. Hey, we started playing. I can go down and record a play now. There is no command phase, or there's no administrative segment. The administrative segment is missing. So I skip down here and don't worry about any of that. Minor Capitani, activate or deactivate. Transfer Capitani in combat units, transfer strength points of orders. I could immediately apply orders to all of these, but I did that already. But I'm going to absorb this guy because he's in my hex. And what does that 2 mean? That's his initiative. I believe he only has 1 strength point. I can get rid of that maneuver chit. I think I'm going to want to start pulling things out of the counter tray because they're so used that I just want a pool of them. And it's not like the map is all that big. We've got our orders issued. There are no reinforcements. Activation of baronial forces. I've got the only baronial forces. Now, consolidation comes at the end of this. I don't know how far Alfonso is going to get. Don't believe there's an interception or anything like that. Let me make sure and check. I wouldn't want to forget something like that, but if the barons move too close to those, I wouldn't want them just getting schwacked. There's the ambush. I think that's the only interception there is. So, I kind of lied, because the game kind of lies. It's got general index. This is a table of contents at the end of the game. There's a difference. An index is much harder to manage. One or the other is necessary. But usually table of contents is going to be at the beginning, not at the end. Movement is 13. It's going to be page number, I'm sure. Nope, maybe it's rule 13? Shouldn't be. Bad sign when the table of contents doesn't get you where you want to go. 8.4, they say page 13. Let's give it another shot. Oh, there it is. It's just tiny. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything of that nature. All right. So, let's find this. We're in the movement of baronial units. I'm hoping that this sequence of play, I know it's got a fair amount of detail in it. I'm hoping that it's good enough detail that it reminds me so I don't have to constantly look things up. So activation of baronial forces. I roll a dice, subtract from the indicated initiative. We have no modifiers that are in general about that. Yeah. An activation marker is placed on or near the Baron. No, it's the orders. But okay. So since the Turks have none, I don't know who first player is. I think it's Alfonso. But it doesn't really make a difference. They automatically pass, which means I only get to move each of my baronials once. And let's do one. Let's pick this guy because he's far away. He has an initiative of 2 at -1, gives him a 1. I get a die roll of 2, which drops his initiative bonus down to -1. Okay. Where's his movement point allowance? Well, he doesn't have it on the counter. The barons, see if we can find them. They're not over in special stuff. Probably going to be in force. The barons exist somewhere. They've got a picture, so I'm going to flip through. Okay, I'm not expecting to see them there. Ah, fuck. Baron unit, see paragraph 16.3. It's not going to be there. There we go. What is that under? Special military units. I should have seen that. Okay. They have a base 5 movement points. That's all I was trying to look up. So he gets to move 4. I look at the terrain. I'm not sure. So I look for the terrain effects chart. Oh, how many are we going to flip? All but one. One that I knew wouldn't have it. So I got these kind of white dots here, which look like stones or something. I think that's going to be heath, which has a normal entry cost. This is going to be wooded. Yeah. So this is going to be heath, and that's got a 1 movement point cost. So I will move 1, 2, 3 to here on the road. I could leave this maneuver chit on him. I don't really want to. I'm going to take it off instead of putting the 1 action point on. I'm feeling like I'm overwhelmed with the amount of counter clutter that I have for such a tiny scenario. It's feeling like Vietnam that way. I always pick on poor Vietnam. It's a fantastic game over here. And that's why I pick on it, because it's a fantastic game that's got a lot of clunkiness to it and that is hard for me to cope with. And honestly, the Zucker designs, and I feel like these by extension, because they have a lot of similarities, have that same kind of thing. It's kind of hard to get into them. I really liked Napoleon at Bay. I enjoyed most of the Zucker designs that I've played because I respect them so much. All Is Lost, Save Honor, I put in that same category. Napoleon at Bay was easy somehow for me. Like, it just made sense. Vietnam is on a further level, and part of it's because it's just so big as well. Anyway, I get to keep going, and I do the same for these others. Now, here's the problem. I only have room for one more of these, which is this guy, right? That I put in the way. So, you know what? I'm going to just pull these off and leave these guys in their fortresses defending them, because I don't see a reason to abandon the fortresses. Okay. Let's get back in the sequence of play. I'm kind of getting into the flow here, kind of almost, sort of. I mean, all right. All the baronials have gone, so now we're on activation of Capitan. Well, these are included in here, so I can't activate them. So basically there's two Capitani on the board. Both players point because the Turks want someone to do something, I guess, or know that someone's going to do something. Alfonso has an initiative of -1 that gives him a 2, whereas he also has an initiative of 2. They both roll. I'll use red for the... I should get dice for every color. Okay. He wins with an initiative of with a roll of 2. No. Oh, wait. Are you trying to roll higher or lower? Subtracting the result from the initiative. Yeah. So you're determining your movement point, basically, modifier. All right, so it's bad to roll high. So my initiative, which was 2, 3 minus 1, minus 2 from the die roll is a 0. The Turks have a 2 unmodified minus 1 for the die roll, gives them a 1. They get to choose first. They're going to force Alfonso to go. Alfonso has, what we just calculated, what was it, a -1? No, he has a 0, right? Initiative of 3, 2, 0, which means he gets to move his full movement points. Had I gone with Sebek, well, actually, no, I will go with Sebek. What the hell? Why not? I have an initiative of 1. That means that my units have movement points. That means I can build earthworks. Oh, which I definitely want. Where do I build earthworks? I don't know where that's going to be, if it's going to be on any of the charts. Again, this is why in Tanto Monta I was unable to see, the charts. I have to flip through all these different charts and everything. You give me too many of them, and unless I'm forced to use them, like the combat chart or something like that, it's going to be hard for me to get used to any extra information you put in them. So what we do is we look up earthworks, I guess. And here's where a real index would have been useful, because I'm looking there. I do find it. It's on page 13. I have a feeling I'm going to be going to that page a lot. Where are they? Here. Okay. Force may place an earthworks marker on itself at a cost of 1 movement point. Let's do that. And we'll find an earthworks counter. These counters are a little thin. Not bad. You know, like 70s era counters or even 80s. We're going to put that there. And that's my movement point. At this point, I have no Capitani, so I am not allowed to select one in any sense of the word, which means we are just on Alfonso, and he gets to roll again. Now, I could have stuck Alfonso with that kind of crappy die roll. Well, actually, with that kind of good die roll. That would have given him 5 movement points, though, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. He could get in. He couldn't take the unit that he's got in on way. But instead, certainly building the earthworks is worthwhile. So now I roll again. I get a nasty 4, which means 2 minus 4 gives me minus 2 minus 4 gives me minus 2 to my movement point allowance. And my slowest unit is a 4, which means I can only move 2. Now, here it is of importance to put a first activation marker on. If I want to, I am unable to take a second activation, though. And these markers could have been on the barons too during their movement. But I just want to point out here, I'm unable to make a second activation. So, and the reason for that is I was not rolling an opposed initiative check. I am able to consolidate. If I had landed in this hex, if I had been able to get there, I would be able to suck him in. Combat and attrition. We're not in any combat. This is a hostile region for the Turks. I need to swap batteries. Obviously, later on in this playthrough and in other playthroughs, I'm not going to go into this kind of detail. Yeah, I know. In some games like Tanto Monta, I'm constantly showing you me looking through the rules. I feel like there's some value to that. Here's what it is. I'm not trying to teach the game, particularly. But in giving the experience of what it's like to face a game of this nature, where there's, you know, because there are some people who are curious, what kind of effort is it going to take, you know? Well, this is the effort it takes me, even once I've read the rules, feel like I have a good overall view. And I feel like that's important. And it's different for every game because of the way the rules are set out. In this game, the rules, I think, overall are set out in a way that I largely appreciate. Okay. So I need to look up attrition. That's page 15. Beautiful. I would be fine if they gave me the number instead. But knowing the page is probably a little better. Okay, we have to find the attrition table. I just wanted to look to see, so I have to look up to make sure that there's nothing weird about it, right? But the most important thing is, and if I had found an attrition table in here, I would have just rolled on that instead of hunting for it. We're going to flip over more of these than actually exist, I feel. Okay, so here we go. The size of the force is of importance, I believe. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 strength points, Puts me on this second roll. I don't know what that red is. That looks nasty. Let's look for our modifiers. We don't have a bonus star. Weather is nothing special. Nothing there. Looks like no modifiers. Oh, I'm not in quarters. Okay. Yeah, quarters is the only way you get a bonus. So I roll a nasty old 6. That means I take a 2. I think I lose 2 strength points. Yeah. So let's look at my units. These are sensitive. Do I have any restrictions as to what I can remove? Movement points expended. What do we got here? Consulting. Looks like I can choose whatever I like. These look like my least qualified units. These are reliable. I think these are my Janissaries. I don't know what these are called. I could look it up. I'll include the weird little things that I do when I feel. This is regular Turkish infantry. Okay. We don't have to roll for attrition over here. We can get rid of this. I'm gonna start keeping things out. Just, it's too much of a pain to use the counter tray. We don't have a victory, and we advance the game turn. June 1 to June 2. I want to go that way. That's one turn. Okay, not much happened. Let's play another turn on this video because I think we're going to get to a fight. But first I need my little breaks. To note about a fight, and I may bring it up again, but this is a big thing that I want to make sure I don't miss in case I forget to bring it up again. Alfonso is a Capitano General. Sabek is not. He's just a Primo Capitino. This is the Capitano General for the Turks. So we're not going to see a full major battle unless the Turkish special rules come into play. Let's see if we can get anything more exciting. I rolled the weather this time. I got it wrong last time. I thought it was May. It's actually June. Whatever. Life is. And now we're on the command phase. Again, it's not a yellow turn. We don't deal with sheep. Baronial units don't get replaced in this scenario. We could move our supply source. This is all the stuff that we couldn't do last turn. And now we're on the organizational. I didn't move close enough, so I can't incorporate a unit. Issue or reissue orders. Why did I take the attack order off him? That, in fact, I took all the orders off. How interesting. That should not have happened. We had a garrison. Because they're on the cards. That's why I took them off. Yeah. For the baronials, I'm allowed to switch their orders up a little bit. I'm gonna drop these guys in garrison. Can't really afford to move him. So I'll swap him out to garrison. Baronials cost 0 to issue orders to, which is kind of cool. They're not a lot. They're not powerful forces, but they do provide you with some interesting flexibility. Think here, I'm thinking in terms of something like Imperium Romanum 2, okay? You basically have one major force in this scenario at least, right? And in all the scenarios, I think you're going to have a very limited number of commanders on the board who can actually do anything. The baronials look like they're going to allow you to do all kind of stuff off to the edges, right? The same way you could by dispersing a few smaller units around to do some cool stuff at Imperium Romanum. It's not going to affect the main flow of the play or whatever, but you can grab fortresses or whatever, maybe do some pillaging, stuff like that. So there's some interest in my head about dealing with something along those lines. Okay. No reinforcements. Yes, there are possible reinforcements, and I may have fucked up by not rolling on the first turn. Don't care. Don't want to hear about it. Okay, the Turks. Beginning in the July 1st. Okay, July 1st is when, let's put him on the board. Okay, so actually I didn't cheat. Cool, is when I start rolling. All right, so activation, the baronials, I threw them all in a reserve situation, or in a garrison situation. Yeah, I guess I'll roll dice and build earthworks or whatever. I did the roll for the 2 Capitanis. I don't see too much point to it in either case. It was just, you know, determine movement points or whatever. Alfonso wins it. It's not like you can do anything after a combat, right? Combat is all done on its own, with the exception of there's an overrun type of combat, but we're not going to see that here, I think. Which to me means we want to move in. Now, do we do it right away? That would give us a second activation. I don't know how much value there is to that. Let's see how many movement points we have here. Our slowest unit is this at 4. We got, like, this will give us the option. No, it won't give us the option because he'll just pass. So we might as well make Sabek go first, right? Well, 2 is a good roll, isn't it? Yeah, 2 is a pretty good roll. So we're at an initiative 2. We have 4 movement points. I can't pick him up, but I can go 1, 2. That leaves me 2 more. As far as I can see, earthworks only cost 1 movement point, right? And there's nothing else that I want to do. There isn't a lot that you can recover, but I don't think that costs you movement points. Yeah. So I will spend a movement point building my earthworks. There as well. And that puts me in a situation where I can conduct a siege if he's in the fortress, if he decides he's in the fortress for the fight, which I think he will. He passes. Or doesn't. We get the action point marker over here for him, whatever. I'm in earthworks. There's nothing I want to do. Neither side really wants to do anything. So we're done with the activation phase. And this is not that surprising, right? There's almost no pieces on the board. It just... It feels weird mainly because I feel like I should be able to use movement points to do all kinds of interesting things, and I'm really not. All right. We had no weather. What am I at here? I'm jumping around. Joint consolidation, we're not in an uncontested hex. Intelligence, we're in the same hex, so we reveal the composition of our forces. Well, everything's there. It's time for battle. All right. So here we come to where things are interesting. Now, we will not be using the major battle optional rules because we don't have a Capitan general, which is kind of a shame. One of the reasons I wanted to do this was I thought it would set me up a major battle. It probably won't. But that's okay. I think I'm close enough. So we go to battle, combat, paragraph 12. Let's figure out what we have here. Force deciding to, okay, we're at here. We select a contested hex, well there's only one. Sort forces, okay. We need a battle marker. Here's one. We'll use battle A. And for all technical reasons, we put Alfonso outside, and we put the Turks in the fortress. The battle hex contains a fortress. The owning player may have one of his forces in the battle occupy the fortress and defend inside. Otherwise, all his forces are outside. The HIF, how do we determine that? Highest initiative force. Has the highest printed initiative of all other Capitani. I don't believe this is modified, which is cool because otherwise attacking would give you a penalty. So Alfonso's the HIF. He decides to attack or be attacked. Well, he cannot force somebody in the fortress to attack. He wants to attack, but he's going to use siege. I have siege artillery, I have engineers, I have all the toys to play with. All right. Declaring a siege. I must be in earthworks at the moment of declaration. I was. With an attack order, I do. There's no siege status marker, so I get a level 0. We'll put that over here for now. It might end up moving to the board. We'll see if the siege goes too long. And a siege marker on or beside the declaring force. He now has a siege marker. And you can see with only 4 of these on here, I think even with the bigger scenarios, I'm assuming, there's not going to be a hell of a lot of combats each turn. At least not expected. Okay. Now we go out of major battle to siege here. We have done step 2, designate the defending force. Terrain affects combat. Is there any terrain other than the fortress? There's heath. We know the maneuver effects are unimportant. Attacking or defending heavy cav will be times 0.5. This is painful, not the effect, but having to look up what I have. So how can I tell if I have heavy cav? This is light cav because it has a movement of 9. This is the heavy cav here. So that I have to worry about. So after step 2, we go to step, I'm guessing 3A, if I can find it. No, that's major battle. I don't think we So this is the whole thing. I don't think we get step 3A here. I think we jump straight to siege, which is going to be artillery fire. Both players resolve their artillery fire. It's directed at the opposing force as a whole. Artillery units sum up their undemoralized SPs and use them to fire just once on the table. After both players attack, we get a modifier. Okay, so let's find the artillery fire table. There it is. Shit. Slide this up. Let me reload. Let's look over the chart. I think this is simultaneous, for whatever that matters. It only rolls a single die anyway. Okay. How many artillery strength points do I have? I have 3. We don't look at the number on the counter, we look at the location it is here, same as the Zucker games. I have siege artillery. Is this a fortified city? I don't think so. We have to, it's on the back of this. We have to look that up. Fortified city looks like that. This is a fortified town. Oh, we have to pay attention to that too. Defender doubled. There's a C there. Okay. All right, that's movement costs. There's no siege status. We have to look up field engineers. We have those with us. Those are going to be a bonus. And the siege artillery as well, which I'm not seeing. Oh, siege artillery affects if it's a parenthesized B. Okay, so 16.1.1. Let's put a bookmark. Optional rules. Okay, 16 is field engineers in attack. I can use them to improve the artillery fire. On a 5 or a 6, I add 2 artillery SP. Okay? I got a 6, so I am up to 5 artillery, putting me up to here. I don't think I have any die roll modifiers. My leader. Ugh. So, I don't know if letters show up on the card. I have none here for Alfonso, so I don't have like any kind of bonuses I need to pay attention to, so that's fine. I get a 4. I get a DC. Target enemy units must make a discipline check. The entire force siege or corps during a major battle. Let me remember that. I don't have a marker for that, but again, this is simultaneous. Because the defender gets to make a fire as well. He has 2 artillery. Let's just put this here. With no bonuses at all. I checked the Sabak unit and it has nothing funky. There's no siege status level. Like I shouldn't get a bonus off of being under siege for longer. Where are we? We did not get a breach, so we can't do an in-breach attack. We could have tried to storm the fortress right away. We don't want to do that. We want to do the siege. So I guess I'm just rolling at 2. I do not get an effective hit. So now we have to look up discipline check. Unfortunately, this doesn't give me the number for that, the rule number. Discipline is rule 16. No, page 16. Page 16. There is a discipline table. A lot of the game is going to be finding my charts. I can tell. All right. So I have various troop qualities here. A bunch of 2s and a 3. And let's look for modifiers. No star, no forced order. Extra wages isn't available now. This isn't movement. Okay, roll with no bonuses. So I follow the row troop quality. It's going to be a 2 or 3. And I roll a die. I get a 6. This is not a good roll. So the 2 quality units got a D. Demoralized. They're all demoralized. That flips them over. This is pretty close to being over. And the 6 gets a double F. If it has more than 3 strength points, it does not. So it is treated as a D. The entirety of the Muslim force is demoralized. I believe they surrender. If all combat units have been eliminated or demoralized by artillery fire, the defending force is eliminated. The game is over. We didn't get a battle, but we got to see some of the mechanisms in play, and I don't feel too badly about that. Yes, I went into them in much more detail than I'm going to in the future, but again, I see some value to that. In terms of victory conditions, we'll make a quick look up, make sure, but I'm pretty sure. If I can find it. These are special rules. Where's victory conditions? There's victory conditions. Here we go. The Turk side immediately wins if it occupies Toronto. The Allied side wins if no Turkish force occupies a fortress at all by the end of the scenario. Well, we could keep playing the way this is worded to see if Bayezid comes in. Honestly, I don't think that check should be makeable. I think once the fortress has fallen, the Turks would write this off. So, that's Otranto. You can see there's some cumbersome situations in it, most of them due to unfamiliarity with playing with the system. And as we play it a little bit more, and I show less of it, but also it's just gonna, it's not gonna be like this throughout. I can guarantee you that. I'm gonna get used to it and not have to look up as many things, whatever. The system feels pretty clean, to tell you the truth. It's just, I'm not familiar with it, even though I've played All Is Lost Save Honor. That was many years ago. All right, up it goes.